Hello, everyone. This is Tim. Welcome to North and South Podcasts. This is a Wellbeing one. Just me this week. I've had a few people on recently, and I've done quite a few episodes recently because of big changes in my life, which offer the good. More to follow on that. I'm doing this podcast even though I feel really ill this weekend. My son was unwell last week, and I was kind of working from home, and he was here at my house, and it was tough. And I was thinking, how can I work and look after a sick child as well? And I listened to a podcast, The Daily Stoic with Ryan Holiday, and he referred to his kids being sick, and he says he's working from home. He says, I just try to just do little things while they're sick, because that's the priority and that's what's important. And I thought, wow, it's simple really, isn't it? Simple really, but sometimes you need to hear it. So I've been sick. I think I've got the same thing my son's had the last 2 or 3 days, and I vomited a lot last night. And you forget how horrible it is and how grateful you should be just to feel okay. And kind of due to evolution, we always kind of see the negatives, don't we? And we don't count our blessings, but just think about everything that you've got going well in your life. You need to train the mind, and it's hard, but you meet people who are very positive and you think that's how everyone should be like. It's a no-brainer really, but we're not, and we need to work on that. So yeah, I've wrote a few things down that I want to mention today, but because I'm sick, I think it's just important when you are sick to try and get through it with as much dignity as possible, and to be okay with yourself and not too harsh on yourself, because you're human. And also, if it affects work and it gives you worries and financial worries, etc., then that's okay too. That's okay too. You just need to think about the best way to navigate it. And we all need other people to help us, and we all need a society around us to help us. That's how we work. That's how we've always worked. So don't be so harsh on yourself. Try and get through it as best you can. I've had spells in my life where I've been like really, really, really ill, and it's so testing. But by getting through it the best you can, there is a heroic dimension to that. And I think you're always better for it, particularly when you look back and go, whoa, that was big. I was flawed there. That really affected me. You can change for the better because of these things. Anyway, I said a lot about waking up and being positive in the mornings. I exercise each morning. I didn't this morning because I'm not well. Meditate, which you've done today. Journaling, which you've done today, which is like self-cognitive behavior therapy, if you like. Cold shower. Well, I get a normal shower and then I get a cold shower at the end, and Wim Hof breathing. I've done both of those today, the Wim Hof method, which you should check out. And also diet and gluten-free. And I'm interested in becoming better with my diet. So show a constant curiosity in how you can get better. I also want to say, when I'm ill, I'm not very good mentally. I just feel so down, because I think I remember when I was really ill in the past. But the last 2 times I've been ill, I think I've been better. I think that's because of work I've put in mentally to try and deal with illness better. I've got a genetic illness and a few other bits, but I do feel you can make progress with those things. You can always make progress with things, even when they are really hard. In my journal each day, I write seize the day, carpe diem. And I always write down in my journal, everything's going to be fine. And I think it's just nice to say that to yourself and to say it to other people as well. Everything will be fine. I just think it's a real article of faith. And usually it is. And even if it's not, just do what you can control, I think. So I have a few little strategies which I use every day in my journaling and my positive thinking, which I've found help me. And you need to find things that work for you. Sometimes you listen to a podcast or someone will say, go, oh, this helps me feel better and all that. And you go, yeah, that's great, but they might not work for you. But the things that do work for you, you can keep them on board. The things that don't work for you can push to the side. And what I always do as well is there might be days when you haven't got a chance to do your journaling, or you haven't got a chance to do all the things you want to do. So just have a few little mantras or key thoughts which you fall back on to help you navigate the day. And this has taken nothing away from financial difficulties and the reality of being ill and just trying to get to the GPs in the UK these days. I'm not saying that those things aren't important. In fact, I'm telling you that those things are very important. I was speaking to a Muslim the other week, someone who's a practicing Muslim, but a liberal Muslim and very open-minded, talking about things. And I was just interested in this idea of that belief in something bigger than yourself and saying, I am surrendering to that idea because I find it works for me and it's positive. But I'm not doing it by forcing my ideas on anyone else, which is what some so-called religious people do. And I had a very interesting conversation with someone and felt very edified and empowered and clearer about my own beliefs as a result of it. Because I think there are things that we sometimes need to surrender to, like the idea of, oh yeah, surrender to fate and I'll do my bit, but there are things beyond my control. And even something like supporting a football team, which I do and take far too seriously, it's a bit of surrender to an idea, but also deep down, you know that there are things more important. But it gives us identity and meaning and fun sometimes, doesn't it? Being positive is important. And I remember a book I read many years ago about these people who just don't let it get to them. Whatever happens, they just take it in the stride. I remember thinking that's a real asset, that, whether it's genetics, upbringing, whatever, it's a real asset to have that general positive sense, just in terms of longevity, the way you deal with illness and all the trials and tribulations that go with life. I also, one of the things that I find interesting with religion as well is the hope that it sometimes gives you, and you don't need religion to get hope. And I read a great book by the Dalai Lama a few years on how you don't actually need religious belief to live a good life. But here's what he wrote at the end of the book, why he was a Buddhist. And I'm interested in Buddhism. I've done podcasts on Buddhism. If someone said to me, would you describe yourself as a Buddhist? Then I'd probably say, like in Generation X by Douglas Coupland, or no, I'm a bit of a meist. I take bits and bobs, but I find it hard to adhere to ideology. And when someone says something, then I go, nah, I'm not having that. You know what I mean? And that's healthy as well, that you're not completely surrendering to ideas, because that's ultimately why, or ideologies and religions, is because that's what leads to problems, which is what we see in the ridiculous situation in Israel, Palestine at the moment, which, and some of the commentary and the things you hear about it are just people who just make it 10 times worse. You know, you've got two groups of people who are effectively exactly the same as each other, who are divided because of religion and skin colour. That's effectively what it comes down to, isn't it? And it's absolutely nonsense. Absolutely nonsense. And it just needs to stop. And I'm not sure how we're going to get it in that situation. There's all kinds going on around the world, but that's in the media a lot at the moment. And sometimes the media kind of focuses people on particular things more than others. But you can say that about consciousness itself. I think Slavoj Zizek said, just by being conscious, you choose things which are of interest to you. And people have blind spots. I hear people going on about things, and I don't know if anyone's listened to Sam Harris's podcasts. I really like Sam Harris. He's like a public intellectual. Goes on a little bit about certain things, but he goes on about like jihadism and Islam as if it's essentially the worst religion in its essence. And he just will not let it go. And we all have blind spots like that, and I've got them, and everyone's got them. But sometimes, just by being conscious, there are certain things which wind us up more than others that we focus on. But in my lifetime, I hope that there is a long-standing peace between Israel and Palestine, I hope. In Matthew, the Gospel according to Matthew, it says you shouldn't worry about food and the basics in life. They will be provided to you because ultimately God provides food for the animals and the birds. And therefore, you'll get some too. Don't worry about it. Have faith that what you need will be delivered to you. And I mentioned this in the podcast I did on the Sermon of the Mount, which is the part of the Gospels, which is to do with the, if you like, the basic ideas of Christianity, which a lot of Christians who I meet don't seem to adhere to. But again, it depends on the type of person who you meet. But I think sometimes it is good to have hope and faith that things will be okay, and you need to find your own way of doing that. Some people find it at the bottom of a glass, or by smoking, or whatever, or by closing themselves off from the world. But there are better ways to access that kind of positivity and desire to be good and to have hope in the world. Sometimes you need to come up with little steps to move towards things that you want. It might be starting off by eating an apple. You don't eat fruit or veg, so tomorrow I'll have an apple. Might be a little small apple to start. Make starts, make positive steps. Do that through your journaling. I do a bit of running. The first time you go out and do a run, if you haven't run for a bit, you might get to the end of the road before you stop thinking you're having a heart attack. Build it up gradually. Build it up gradually. And that's what we should be doing with our lives, constantly looking to get better and think of little steps. Through our journal, and we can identify them. But keep it simple. Keep life as simple as possible. Well, this convoluted complexity. You know, yeah, the world is complex, life is complex, but we need to make it as simple as possible. That is the key to happiness. One of the big things we need to do is to process our feelings and our emotions on a day-by-day basis without suppressing them, to be okay with an emotion and a feeling and then decide the best route forward. And that means that we manage our emotions and keep our counsel and sometimes let things go. But that doesn't mean you don't feel the emotion. It means that you don't overreact, you keep calm, you maintain your equanimity. It can be very, very hard at times. I went to a football match yesterday, shouting at the referee. You're thinking, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Nothing too bad, like, but just shouted a few things. And really, if I was looking at myself doing that, I'd probably think, you need to calm down. You know what I mean? It's a game of football at the end of the day. And I'd be absolutely right as well. But check out the podcast I did with Alex on the Sedona method about letting things go and processing your emotions and just being present in your body and accepting things as they are. And life can be so tough, can be so tough. It always helps when you can read your own handwriting from the notes you wrote a few minutes ago. I did a first draft and I've done like some notes on that first draft. And now I can't read my own handwriting. But I think I've covered that point there. Another thing which I think is important is, particularly as you get older, your body keeps the score. And by looking after yourself each day, you're giving yourself a better future. So if you're doing things to your body, like allowing bad emotions, feeling bad, being in tough situations, we need to try and get away from those things as much as possible and move towards a better, more fulfilling life. I've mentioned this book before, Letting Go by David Hawkins, which links into what I said about the Sedona method and processing your emotions. Check that book out. We also need to be focused on solutions. So if you've got an issue and you want to get to a particular place, you need to be aware of that solution and then do the steps towards it. I think that's important too. And an example of the running I've just mentioned earlier is one way that we can do that. So let's get better each day. Challenge ourselves, but just take small steps. And we sometimes need to accept the reality of situations and say, I can't control that, but I can control this. That is ultimately what wisdom is all about. When we get upset about things which we can't control, it's absolutely ridiculous. Sometimes I'll be watching football on TV, getting all aggravated and thinking, just calm down, just calm down. But we're all, sorry, just feeling a bit under the weather today. We're all works in progress, aren't we? So keep the faith. Another thing which is key to Buddhism is the idea of mind. So on one day, something can happen to you and you'll deal with it really well. Another day, the same thing will happen to you and you won't deal with it really well. And this is where the Buddhist concept of mind is important, because we have this idea that there's an objective world, but actually the mind processes, it links to the idea of consciousness itself being an interpretation of things, but the mind interprets the world. And if you're mindful of your mind doing that, that allows you to think more strategically and to say, okay, this is happening. Why? I'm tired today, I'm grumpy today. Be aware of that, be mindful of that. Accept sometimes that you will struggle. And this idea as well that you go into work, you've got to be perfect all the time. That in your home life, you've got to be perfect all the time. That in whatever you do, sports, exercise, you've got to be, that's not life. We're human. We're far from perfect. And the mind, as I've said before, it's a good servant, but a poor master. Is your mind, are your thoughts helping you on a day-by-day basis? And I'm going to give you one thing which I want you to think about. I've been a bit all over the place today because I've changed the plan a little bit because I'm not feeling well. I actually feel better coming on here now and talking about something positive, which is good. Sometimes it can be good to try and move away from the negative feelings, but it doesn't mean that you don't process them at some point. But think about, and I've said this in at least 2 podcasts before, think about how you talk or think to yourself. I said it the other week. It's called metacognition. How are you thinking about how you think about things? So if you're angry, you can say, yeah, you're angry, yeah. That's the angry voice, the angry mind talking. Be aware of that. So you're taking a step back rather than this blind acceptance that whatever you experience is reality. And that's just the way it is. So over the next 24 hours, do you speak to yourself positively or negatively? And if in between, whereabouts? Is there more positive than negative stuff? Just get interested in that and think, why? It might be that you need to move away from a particular position. Yeah, you might be in a job you're not like, and then you need to pay the bills, etc. But there can be things that you can do. Today, I spoke to someone earlier today who isn't always very pleasant. And when they're not pleasant, I think, I still haven't learned that I should not get bothered by that person. I still haven't learned that. So I need to get there. I might never get there. And as Martin Luther King said the day before he was shot, I've seen the promised land. I've been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land, and I might not get there with you. And in many ways, we never get there, do we? But we can move towards our objectives and get better. So the next 24 hours, how do you talk to yourself? Write down the good thoughts, the bad thoughts, and just note them and go, ooh. And it's good because the bad thoughts are trying to help you. They're trying to keep you alive. They're trying to protect you. But they often don't help. They make us worse. And the positive thoughts, what can we do to encourage them? Do things you enjoy. Sometimes sport, whatever, people enjoy it and it takes the mind off things. You go, I actually had a nice day today. But those times when you are thinking, how are you thinking? Is it good? Is it bad? Does it serve you or does it not serve you? If it doesn't serve you, what are the emotions behind that can actually help you? So if you're getting a bad vibe off someone, you can go, right, there's something there that I need to deal with. Doesn't mean that you want to shut off that valve, or it's like having pain. Sometimes, like if you've got toothache, Your body's saying to you, you've got toothache, you need to sort this tooth out. You wouldn't want to turn that off, even though you might feel like you're in the middle of it. There's messages being sent. What are the messages that you're sending yourself throughout the day with your mouth and through your thoughts? Forget everyone else, forget the world. How are you interpreting your life day to day? So today I've been a bit sick. I've probably been a bit harsh on myself at times. Okay. But I'm better than I was a year ago when I used to get sick and I used to get really down. I actually feel a bit better dealing with illness these days than I did a year ago. That's interesting. Why? What can I do to get better again? Who are you talking to? When you talk to yourself, who's talking to you? Is it a friend or a foe or all points in between? We often would stand up to others who speak to us badly, but let ourselves speak to ourselves badly. Because you are often the biggest bully in your own life. So 24 hours, what are your thoughts, Blake? Good, bad, in between, whatever. Write them down. Think about them. How can I get better? How can I process this? Doesn't mean you sit there and not taking action. No. Doesn't mean you shut yourself off from the world and all the injustices. No. But you work on yourself and then you make the world a better place. Right, that'll do for today. Hope you're well. And it's nearly the end of April. The sun's out, even though it's still a bit chilly. I haven't got a massive head, by the way. If you're watching this, my earphones are on underneath me hoodie. So I have got a big head, but it just looks a bit bigger than it actually is. Right, look after yourselves. Peace.